Hey everyone, it's Tyler. Before we get into the episode, we have some bad news. Guys, we had a good run, but we finally had a pretty bad recording snafu. We didn't catch it until after we finished recording, but Sam's mic in this episode glitched around the 25-minute mark. Since it was post-recording that we found it, there was only so much we could do to fix it after the fact, so for about half the episode, Sam's going to sound a bit like she's talking from a tin can. We apologize for the wonkiness and have some plans to catch it while recording in the future, but just wanted to give everybody a heads up. That's what happened. Thanks again for listening, and here's the episode.
Hello, and welcome to the Tabletop Travel Guide, the podcast where we explore fictional worlds and civilizations right from the comfort of our own table. Hello, I'm Sam, and this week in Pathfinder, I can remember nothing that I did. Did I play any Pathfinder last week?
You had a rough week last week.
Oh, that's right. I had 50 million things happening at work, and so there was no fun times for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sam did not play any Pathfinder.
Well, speaking of not playing Pathfinder, I had COVID, so I was in isolation, and I played nothing but computer games.
I thought COVID was over. It's
definitely not over, guys.
It keeps
I
coming
can
around.
confirm.
There you go.
So far, it's been a rough Pathfinder week for the Tabletop Travel Guide.
Well, I am Tyler, and I did play Pathfinder this week. And in a session yesterday, the person that I conned into playing a few weeks ago actually asked to play again.
Oh, there it is.
Of us.
That's what I said. Our friend whose friend it was. He's like, hey, Danny wants to play again. We have a person out. Is that okay with you? And I'm like, heck yeah. So we fleshed out her barbarian a little bit more, and she had fun with it.
Good job.
So
good job, Tyler.
Yeah, we have another Pathfinder convert, and it's great.
You are a wonderful ambassador to the hobby. Good job.
Yes.
Making up for the rest of us not playing anything.
Yeah, what the heck, guys? I was in a little bit withdrawal. We're usually in like 3 campaigns, and I think I played like once in the last 2 weeks.
Sorry.
It happens. It's fine. Yeah. So it's been a couple episodes, but we are bringing back the things we misspoke on the
It's
episode.
all my fault.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. We probably misspoke other things. So some of them are minor and some of them are partially my fault. So the first one, we called it the Mind Span Mountains in passing last episode, and it's actually the Mind Spin Mountains.
In my defense, sometimes I get weird twangs and accents when I talk about stuff. So I think that somehow Mind Spin could have been Mind Span, and then it was weird.
And then the second one we talked about was Alika, the angel that appeared in Magnamar.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam was actually half right on this. When she recorded this episode, or that episode, in 2 seconds, she said both Alika and Aquila.
Okay, again, in my defense, there is a movie from 2006 called Aquila and the Bee, and for some reason, Aquila makes more sense as a name in my brain then instead of Alika, and when you're looking at the tiny font on the computer, and you just go really quick. So I just feel like this is a roast of Sam's inability to pronounce things.
To be fair, it's always the roast of the last person who hosted.
So don't worry, wait till I talk again.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the how she was half right and I made her all wrong is I saw that while I was editing and I copied the wrong one and just pasted it off in both. So it was wrong twice and Sam was half right.
Nice.
Sam was half right and I made her all wrong.
Good.
The other one that Ryan said was very minor, we called it the Order of the Cipher with the Cipher Mages, but it's actually Order of Ciphers. They didn't want to be confused for Hell Knight Orders.
Very, very minor in my opinion.
Minor.
It's like a grammatical sleight of tongue.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't remember saying that.
Who knows? I said it.
It didn't happen.
It was also in our advertisement. If you saw it on YouTube, so we put it on there. It's fine. We don't get, we're not actually sponsored by the fictional companies in which we advertise for. And then the final thing, which is actually going to segue perfectly into our story, is we were joking about the generalization about the 7 deadly sins in Thassilon.
Mhm.
And we were like, who would build an entire nation on the 7 deadly sins? That seems silly. And while it was funny, it's not exactly true. But we'll get into it today.
It turns out building it didn't make sense.
It didn't start with the sins.
Sure.
Let's say it got there.
Okay.
The Runelords got there.
Well, again, in my defense, cramming a bunch of stuff into one episode, and I was not going to go down the rabbit hole that is the current episode.
Yes.
That's fair. So
Good luck, Tyler.
This has been another segment of Things We Misspoke, followed by Sam's rebuttals.
I do argue the most against the things that I said wrong.
We're all like, oh yeah, we messed up. And Sam's like, actually.
Excuse me.
So today we are talking about New Thassilon, which we mentioned a little bit last episode, how Varissia is kind of built on the ruins of an ancient nation of Thassilon.
Mhm.
And we didn't talk too much into it. We mentioned the Runelords, but there is a country in the Saga Lands also called New Thassilon.
Sure.
So for the purposes of this episode, if we're talking about the ancient city or ancient country, we're going to be calling it Old Thassilon.
Sure. Even though they didn't call themselves Old Thassilon.
They didn't call themselves Old Thassilon.
Yes.
I like it.
So New Thassilon, you can't really talk about New Thassilon without talking about Old Thassilon.
Of course.
And you can't talk about either Thassilon without talking about the Runelords. So I am going to try to be brief in this episode, but I'm going to be covering the bit of a history of Thassilon, the country,
Mm-hmm.
2 adventure paths,
Oh,
both
boy.
the Rise of the Runelords and the Return of the Runelords, which are both first edition adventure paths. So like we have talked about, since they have affected canon in 2nd edition, we generally don't worry about avoiding spoilers in our episodes for first edition adventure paths. But if you do want to play one of those, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will be talking large overarching plot.
Mm-hmm.
So, without further ado, let's dive in, shall we? Old Thassilon. We've talked a little bit about the country of Azlant and the Azlanti people.
Yes,
Mhm.
briefly.
Briefly. Friend of the pod Eridan was Azlanti, and they were the ones who were a super advanced ancient civilization that got meteored by their deities who they kind of forgot about.
Yeah.
And that's where Earthfall happened.
They're kind of like Atlantis.
Yeah.
Ooh, a good comparison. I
Yes.
always like Atlantis.
Yeah.
Till it
So
sinks.
we don't really need to know too much about Azlant or the Azlant people, except to know that the founder of Old Thassilon, Sin, was
Oh,
Azlanti.
Mm.
So Sin, spelled Xin, pronounced either Sin or Shin,
Mm.
depending on dialect I found. I'm going to go with Sin because I feel like that kind of fits with the theme.
Sure.
So he was a powerful Azlanti wizard who had the belief that Azlant should cooperate with the, quote, lesser races, unquote, to build an even greater nation of Avestan.
Okay, so it's like, oh, that's good, but also it's like still problematic that we're considering like other races lesser, but like I guess better that like
Yeah,
you want to
baby
work
steps,
together.
Baby steps.
So,
We're going to include the short ones in
Oh,
our
boy.
civilization.
so for this belief, he was exiled from Azlant.
Great.
Awkward.
He fought for his beliefs, and they were like, that is terrible.
He's
So,
gone too far.
He's gone how far could he have gone by talking about working with other races?
you want to call them people?
Yeah.
Get
So,
out of here.
I'm sure when we cover Azlant, we will cover the problematic situation that's going on. But after he was exiled, he basically took a group of followers and went north and kind of settled in a place that's now known as the Hollow Mountain. That would be the start of the country of Thassilon.
Okay, so he takes his group, and they're like, all right, well, we'll see you later.
Yeah, we're
Cool.
going to go make our own place with, I guess possibly more rights. I don't know.
Sounds
But-
familiar.
It's fine. So, of course, he settles in what's now the area of Varissia, kind of that whole Saga Lands
Mm-hmm.
area. And over the following years, Sin did his best foreshadowing of future Taldor and kind of went exploring.
Ooh, exploring before Taldor.
Before
Ooh.
Taldor.
The
And
OG explorer.
Ooh.
for a year, they don't actually have years for this. This is like Age of Legend.
Sure.
So like way,
Prehistory,
way back.
basically,
Yeah, kind of
yeah.
prehistory. So there will be relative years, but not like in this year until we hit some canon events of
Yeah.
Pathfinder, of Golarion. So they kind of started expanding rapidly through the land. They were battling existing human and elven tribes.
There were people there?
There were people there. Who would have thought? The native Varisians and Shawanti, who were there at the time. So they've been there the whole time.
A while.
Yeah. They were fighting against Sin and his soon-to-be Thassilonian people. However, in this case, the kind of commerce and technology that Sin brought with him was so far advanced and ended up being kind of a boon to all the tribes, all the native tribes. And so they eventually kind of became reliant on Thassilon for the commerce.
Okay.
So they kind of became ish trade consumers.
I mean, still colonialization, but
Yeah. So
not
kind of
murder colonialization.
Yeah, it's like we brought you technology, which is, still not great. For the most part, they all kind of consolidated.
Mhm.
There was one tribe, the Miriani tribe. They were an elven tribe that lived in a forest kingdom, and they fought against the newcomers pretty hard and were largely successful. They were able to push them back out of their lands and kind of keep themselves separate.
And this is before Earthfall, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
the elves are like everywhere.
Yeah, the elves are everywhere. So this is
Okay.
before they, pieced out back to Silverian.
Right.
Between Thassilon and the Miriani tribe, there were some acts of sabotage, one of which I just kind of wanted to point out because I thought it was interesting, is that a ruler of one of the Thassilonian provinces named it Edasseril.
Name the province.
Named the province
Okay.
Edasseril after the one of the elven princesses of Mirani. And because she was very jealous of the Princess of Beauty, hoping that if she stole the name, she could also steal the legacy.
Huh.
Oh, that's a weird flex.
It is
Yeah.
a weird flex. It didn't actually work out, though, because if you remember, the current Queen of Keonan is Talandia Edasseril. So the name stuck with the elves.
Oh,
and
that's
there's
a cool little connection.
Yeah, so
Oh.
one of
like
the
a-
descendants.
Weird way to subvert somebody. Like, you know what? Everyone's going to remember your name as the name of a city.
You're gorgeous. I'm going to name my city after you to spite you.
It's
Right.
like Paris and Paris Hilton. Like, what do you remember first?
Yeah, I'm wondering if they were hoping that if the city was around long enough, then they could just
Claim
their name as it. It's like, oh, then we're the Edasserils or whatever.
the Paris and Paris Hilton. That's such a good example. Yeah. That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah. As Thassilon grew bigger and started expanding, Sin appointed 7 of his most powerful wizard allies to kind of act as governors. He split the empire into 7 domains, and each governor of their domain was focused on one of the 7 schools of rune magic that Sin helped define.
Okay, so you got his boys.
Yeah,
We got the boys.
So we do have the 7 schools of magic. And these methodologies of the different schools of magic stemmed from the 7 Azlanti virtues, which were wealth,
Mhm.
fertility,
Sure.
honest pride, kind of a
Oh.
reach there,
Okay.
abundance, eager striving, righteous anger, and rest.
I like righteous anger. That's
Righteous-
legit.
Righteous anger is awesome.
Right? Unsurprisingly, and kind of where we were getting to last episode, not long after the appointment, these governors who were then kind of became Runelords, they corrupted these virtues into the 7 sins that we now know today.
Oh, so like the Runelords came first, and then we got the 7 deadly
Mhm.
sins. Not that the 7 deadly sins were there already. I like this origin story.
What could possibly go wrong with using righteous anger as a core virtue?
Or honest pride.
Okay, let's break down honest pride, because honest pride's a weird one. Like
I wonder if they're just like, what is the good equivalent of pride?
honest
Pride.
But I
We can
feel
think of something better,
like-
and let's just move on.
I feel like honest pride to me is like a pride in a hard day's work.
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
true.
I'm proud of what I've accomplished here. This is my farm and we've grown it, and like it's a wholesome, like, yes, this is a nice
Isn't that
thing
just
that I've
pride
worked
though?
for.
Like isn't that
Yeah.
just the word pride?
I mean, I feel like it shifts from pride, like, oh, I'm proud of this, to
like
pride, like arrogance.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
but arrogance is like the bad. Like if you
yeah.
pride is the positive and arrogance is the
the-
negative.
you're not the sin of arrogance, you're the sin of pride. They had to make it work. It's
Okay,
fine.
it's fine.
Anyway,
It's fine.
don't think about it. The other interesting thing is that the Runelord title could be kind of changed, and you can several have been overthrown. So like the same Runelords are not it wasn't the same 7 the whole time, except for 2.
Okay.
Oh, it's a title that can be like passed on to somebody else.
Either passed on or
killed
taken
o-
over,
killed
or killed
on.
off.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into too much detail of the history of each, but there were only 2 Runelords kept the single title of their sin the whole time. Other ones changed hands.
Okay.
So 100 years after this corruption kind of sunk in, we have the inevitable outcome of a group of governors or Runelords who still have a relatively benevolent leader of Thassilon, and they didn't want to have that.
Uh-oh.
So they attempted to assassinate
Oh.
Sin,
Uh-oh.
Aw.
the person, not the
Well, sure.
So unfortunately for them, he was prepped for this. So when their kind of assassins came into his palace, he used all of kind of the rest of his magic, and he consumed himself and his enemies in an inferno of crimson flame that blew up most of his palace, obliterated his remains, and split up one of his most powerful artifacts called the Sahedron.
Dang.
Oh.
So he just basically was like, you can't take me, and then blew himself up.
Also, this is very 3.5,
Oh,
12 contingencies.
Yeah, yes.
That triggers when you take 2 steps close to me.
Yeah, just so you know. So the artifact he had with him was a 7-point artifact. We like the number 7
Yeah, geez,
here.
oh man. We're
Each
really
made,
into 7.
right? Each made of a different sky metal and set with an ion stone, which is kind of like a little floaty stone that has different powers.
Mm-hmm.
So he had this
Okay.
star that always floated near him.
Okay.
And his plan was he's going to obliterate the Sahedron with the plan that when all the pieces were put back together, he would be resurrected.
Oh.
He put magic into them to resurrect himself if they were put back together.
So did he also have like a little henchman that he was like, your job is to put this back together? 'Cause
So
that's
he doesn't
a...
go into detail of his plan. I don't know if his plan was like, the Runelords will want to get power back from my artifact, so they're going to put it together and I'm going to survive. So what they did instead is they just were very sus of this now broken artifact and just hid all the pieces in separate places.
That's the correct response.
Yeah, the Runelords were like, yeah, we're not messing with that. We don't know what he's going to do. So
Do you think he had that thought, like in his final moment, was like, wait, I should have told somebody?
yeah.
Who will put me back together? Oh, no.
Yeah, Sin never comes back.
Aw, buddy.
Oh, poor Sin.
Yeah, his plan was foiled by the Runelords.
Did the little shards exist somewhere? Like, could he come back eventually?
So, actually, yes. The Sahedron plays an integral part in the Adventure Path Shattered Star, which we're not really going to dive into today because we're already talking about 2 other adventure paths. But basically, after Rise of the Runelords and Curse of the Crimson Throne, which Sam mentioned briefly in the Varisia episode, and Second Darkness adventure paths, basically the people of Varisia were kind of looking to find a new way to help fix a lot of the chaos that was currently happening in the country.
Well, sure.
And so
Understandable.
and so then they learned about the Sahedron and figured, heck, if anybody can fix all of our woes, it's the first ruler of Thassilon.
It's the guy who got us in this mess in the first place?
I don't know that would be my pick. I think I maybe would have gone like all-powerful deity, not random dude who didn't quite work out.
Right? The random dude who didn't think through his revival plan.
Who fumbled his final plan.
So we fast forward in the adventure path, and they basically gather all the pieces together and accidentally cause a tsunami because
Like you do.
Sure.
where Sin's body was, Xin, was on the Isle of Sin, also Xin, which was an island that had sunk after Earthfall.
Okay.
And so as part of his resurrection plan, it rose the island up out of the ocean.
Oh my gosh, it's Atlantis.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so because of that, it displaced all the water and caused a tsunami.
Oh, jeez.
Perfect.
Yeah. The other problem was that Sin, after he obliterated himself, He was not quite dead. He never made it to the boneyard, but he was not quite alive. So he basically just kind of spent 10,000 years going insane.
I am not yet dead.
Cool.
Yeah, so because of that, he just wanted to take back over Thassilon, and he was basically evil and insane now. So, the adventurers in that campaign had to kind of go find him at the isle that just showed up and kill him.
Why do
People never come back quite
I was gonna
right
say,
when you
no.
raise them
Yeah,
up from
same-
the dead.
Same thought. Why would we go back and find somebody who's been like 10,000 years dead?
Yeah. So, long story short, to answer your question, the Sahedron was put back together, and Sin did come back, and then had to get killed again.
Great.
The actual cool fun fact, though, which I was reading in Return of the Runelords, is that there's mention of the Sahedron heroes. At one point, you
Oh.
do actually meet the heroes from Shattered Star.
Huh.
And so if you had characters that played in that campaign, you would effectively meet your past characters,
That's fun.
which was kind
Aw,
of cool.
I like that.
Yeah. And they also have, in case you didn't play that, they had the Iconics play those characters.
Of course.
Anyway, so long story short, Sin is no longer in the picture for the purposes of our episode today. So let's get back to the Runelords. Fast forward 1,000 years. The powerful mages have kept themselves alive most of this time.
Man, okay, so that's the same people. So they're like, look, I'm
Two of the
so okay. So theoretically,
Mhm.
if they were not like offed by somebody else, they could have all been
Yeah.
alive this long with
Yeah.
all their magical
Yeah, so they could
intervention.
have.
They gotta be buds with Night Owl. This is like another nation that's like existing forever.
Yes.
Yeah,
No. Well, I guess more turnover, but
Yeah.
that's
Mm.
true. This is even before.
Before all the stuff with Night Owl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the current Runelords have just become a nightmare of egotism. The country of Thassilon has become like so bloated under the weight of its own like greed and
Mhm.
Of course.
crazy that like moving goods and services around is a logistical nightmare. There are riots. There are like, it's nuts for the people living in. And for the
Mhm.
Runelords, they are just constantly building taller monuments and fighting greater battles and all just doing these self-indulgent craziness.
Perfect.
They enslaved giants to build monoliths to themselves. So a lot of the monoliths you see around that have been built, like the Cipher Gate, or they're like some other towers that still exist now, were basically built because it's like, I want a tower to myself by the Runelords.
Huh.
By the time Earthfall happens in, minus 52 something AR.
Oh my gosh, so much has happened already.
Yeah. So
Usually our stories start with Earthfall.
yeah, in this one, Earthfall is like the middle.
ooh,
So Earthfall happens and people start dying very obviously.
Right.
So what the Runelords did is they kind of foresaw the meteor coming. So
They would.
protected all of their people. No, I'm kidding. They didn't do that. They
I was like, really?
Like,
No.
That's
wow,
a
that's
twist.
very uncharacteristic.
No, they cut and run. They hid away in these fortresses. Each one was heavily guarded, separated, and they built these things called rune wells that are kind of like wells of magical power that would put each Runelord into a stasis and protect them, and then like slowly fill back up with magic to the point where it would activate at some point in the future, and then they would reawaken.
It's like a little space pod.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So it's kind of like a little cryopod.
See, if you're gonna do a reincarnation stick though, like you gotta build it so that it like self actualizes.
Yeah.
You can't depend on others to put your 7-pointed MacGuffin together.
Exactly.
They learned.
So they all kind of built. Most of them built these rune wells and kind of stasis themselves. Some more successful than others. We'll get there.
Cool.
And after that, Earthfall happens. We all kind of know a lot of people die,
hmm
but the Runelords are just chilling in their little cryopods. They're hanging out.
Cool.
So
Just chilling.
for the next 10,000 years, we're gonna skip ahead.
Yada yada yada.
Yada yada yada.
10,000 years.
Happens 10,000 years later. Countries are happening. Varisia's building like stuff in what was Thassilon.
Sure.
But Thassilon itself as a nation does not exist
Sure.
at the moment. People have all these monuments. They don't know what, like, they forget the origin of where they all came from. It's basically like, hey, free real estate. Let's build on
no
top.
one lives there, so
So this brings us all the way up to 4702. which is 21 years ago. Current time.
Okay, so we're like basically almost modern.
Yeah, so we basically went from Earthfall to modern day.
I feel like I was just like on a high-speed rail.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, one time I was over here, and then I blinked, and then bang!
I just
Oh my
imagine-
god, someone drugged me. Jeez, oh man.
I just imagine in the movie you have and they all went into their rune wells to awaken some point in the future. Smash cut to modern day.
Captain America steps out of the
Oh my
building.
I mean, kind of.
It's so jarring.
So 4702, this is where the events of the adventure path Rise of the Runelords take place.
Rise of the Runelords.
And this is an unwitting stone giant wizard accidentally triggered one of the rune wells and awoke the Rune Lord of Greed, Karzug. So he triggered a rune well and kind of awoke him from his stasis. But it took 5 years after that to kind of amass the power to materialize. Because you're still in stasis, you're weak after that. They needed like more magic to kind of manifest.
Yeah,
in
it
back
turns on
in
the
flesh and
lights.
blood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was influencing this wizard, building up denizens, gathering enough power to manifest. And then he ended up manifesting in flesh and blood, like on a plane outside of the material plane or the universe, which is now called. So luckily, before he could fully invade the material plane, the universe, there was a group of heroes that were able to get where he had manifested and kill him.
Nice.
Thus, finishing out the adventure path of Rise of the Runelords and saving the day.
For all of our listeners who have completed Rise of the Runelords, good job.
Good job.
Yay.
Well, at
You
least-
are these heroes.
Probably. Assuming you didn't wipe on the final battle.
That's true. If you beat Karzug, thank you. This podcast cannot happen without
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
If you didn't, then we're very sorry about the alternative universe you live in now.
Yes. So I'm going to do a quick nerd out away from the lore and talk about Paizo. So Paizo, if you don't know, or if you are new to Pathfinder, Paizo started out writing adventures and supplements for Dungeons & Dragons 3.5,
Woo!
which was,
Broken.
broken and the system that we kind of cut our teeth on. So Rise of the Runelords was the first ever adventure they wrote for the 3.5 system. So the cool thing that Paizo has done is they tied the current year to the in-universe year. So adventure paths that take place in 4707, which is when Rise of the Runelords takes place, came out in 2007.
Oh.
Yeah. And 2 years after that adventure path came out was when first edition Pathfinder came out, so 2009. And they've kept the same universe Earth year parity since then.
Oh my gosh, wait, it's 4723?
Yeah.
Wow, it makes this so
Oh
much
my
easier
gosh.
to remember all the dates.
Seal and I are both
Sorry.
like, oh my gosh.
Did you guys
Wow.
not know
No.
that?
Look, I didn't connect it. I did not think about it, but like my mind is blown.
There
Just-
should have been a disclaimer, like episode 1, like, hey guys, by the way, the dating structure.
I'm pretty sure we talked about that at some point. Anyway, for those of you who don't know then, the reason why we are in 4723 is because it ties to the year 2023 of Earth time.
I literally
Look.
just do the math every time in my head, and it's way tougher.
Yes, absolutely. Ryan and I are working much too hard.
Well, there we go.
So, okay, yeah. So my quick little nerd out informed everybody. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. So Rise of the Runelords, first adventure path in 3.5 came out in 2007. So 4707 was when the situation was
Good job.
happening.
Good job, people.
So crisis averted, Runelord dead. People are now kind of flocking to Thassilon to learn more about the history. They now kind of know more like, oh, there was like some evil wizards going on. Like,
Cool.
huh. So people are learning all over all this cool stuff. The Runelord's dead, so it's good. Little did they know that when Karzug's Runewell was activated, it would kind of start stirring the other Runelords as well.
Contingencies.
Dun dun.
It's like the Halo rings.
Yes. So Elaznist, the Rune Lord of Wrath, was the first to stir in the same year that Karzug's Rune Lord was activated. So 4702, her Runewell was activated as well.
Okay.
Unfortunately for her, it took a lot longer, so 14 years to gather enough energy for her to manifest.
Sure.
Well, yeah, she's got to like fill up the rage meter, and that seems like
Yeah.
it would take
Yeah.
longer.
So
Gotta wait for an election year.
right. So this is all kind of the story in the Adventure Path Return of the Runelords, which is one of the last first edition adventure paths. So Alisnist wakes up in 4716 and finally like gets out of her stasis in that time. A year after this, she learned about the fate of Karzag, how he died. But she also learned about two other Runelords, the slothful Kroon and the gluttonous Zutha.
Kroon and Zutha.
So we're going to do a quick lightning round about these two because they're only kind of relevant. So Kroon was too lazy to build another empire after he woke up. So before he went into stasis, he basically built these things called refuge tokens, spread them all around Golarion, heavily fortified them, covered them with traps, assuming that by the time his followers woke him up, they would have conquered a kingdom for him to rule.
Oh, jeez.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He's a planner.
Yeah, he was finally awoken in 4713, only to be promptly killed by some agents from the Pathfinder Society. Zutha.
Wait, does he get his own adventure path?
No, he is in I think he dies in a Pathfinder scenario.
Hilarious.
Pathfinder Society scenario.
Okay.
So Zutha, on the other hand, he was an undead lich who had to constantly be fed life essence, thus earn the was the gluttonous.
Yeah.
So anyway, he bound his essence into an Eldritch book called the Gluttonous Tome. He split that one into 3 volumes and entrusted them to his servants. He expected them to bring him right back after Earthfall. They did not realize that Earthfall was going to be as world-ending as it was, so everything got split.
At least he delegated.
Yeah, he did delegate. He was like, let the meteor hit, bring it right back, bring me back.
He had a plan.
Fast forward to 4715. And the tome was finally rebuilt by a man named Varian Jagar, and he was under Zutha's influence. So Zutha was kind of stirring, but didn't have enough energy.
Okay.
And was kind of influencing this guy. So luckily for Varian, not Zutha, Jagar's companions were able to free him from the influence, and they were all able to defeat the Runelord before he was fully able to reconstruct his body. And they scattered the tome again.
Okay.
Cool. Shut the book on those two.
We're 3 of 7 down.
Yes, back to Alisnist. So she found that the Runelord of Envy, Belimarius, was still trapped in her Runewell, which we'll cover in a minute, and that the Runelord of Lust, Sorshin, had awoken but was kind of off the radar. So instead, she turned her attention to the final Runelord, the Runelord of Pride, Xandergul, to kill him before he could wake up.
Oh, jeez.
Sure.
So long story short, he was trying to use some weird time travel wonkiness as part of his Runewell to just skip past Earthfall and wake up later.
I mean, not a bad plan.
Yeah.
Sure.
Timing went wrong, it didn't go well, but she found out about it, used that wonkiness in the form of a scepter called the Scepter of Ages.
Cool.
To instead go back in time, alter it so that she would be able to enter Xandergul's like refuge where his Runewell was, and killed him as he awoke.
I mean, mission successful.
So
we're 4 down.
yeah.
So 4 Runelords down.
Then she went back in time 7 more times.
Oh my
Seriously.
Gosh.
Or a total of 7 times. People really like 7. They had a thing here.
It's a lucky number.
And kept making changes to the point where she ruled a place called New Thassilon. Name of the episode. We finally made it. And this New Thassilon stretched basically the whole northwestern part of Avestan. So it was where Nidal was, to Ustalav, up to the Lenorm team. So there was no Varisia, there was no anything. It was all New Thassilon.
Interesting. Okay.
So luckily, some adventurers went back in time, somehow, and stopped most of the past from happening. And all was mostly right with the world-ish. They defeated her. She died.
Okay.
They came back. We're good. So if you played and finished the adventure path, Return of the Runelords, we thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. So this leaves the last 2 Runelords. And this is kind of where we finally get to what New Thassilon is today. So you have Belimarius, the Runelord of Envy. So due to some bad advice from Karzag and some magical ineptitude on her part, she was not able to design and make her own Runewell. So she basically got some blueprints from Karzag.
Oh my god, she got a bootleg.
Yeah.
Bootleg Runewell.
And so he was like, yeah, forget you, and turned it into a trap. So when she tried to activate her Runewell, it imploded and trapped her many of her trusted allies, and in the entire domain she was over, which at this time was called Sin Idasaril.
Our Paris Hilton town.
Yeah, the Paris
Perfect,
Hilton
yes.
town. So it locked all of them in a sphere outside of time where they lived the final week before Earthfall again and again, never aging or remembering anything they learned in that time.
Oh, that is torturous.
Oh.
Yeah. So for effectively 10,000 years, they replayed the same week over and over and never remembered.
Oh.
But you wouldn't know that you're replaying it, so like you just don't have the cognition. Like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Right?
awful.
Yeah. So it wasn't until 4718 where Elasnist, when she used the wonky time scepter, that temporal loop that was trapping Bellamarius was broken. And then they all kind of woke up and realized it's been how long and what has been happening.
That's awful.
Yeah. So there was a moment where kind of Bellamarius her control of the area wavered, but then she quickly kind of got it back together and then assumed her reign again and stepped into taking up leadership over half of New Thassilon as it currently stands.
Oh, like the current, okay.
The current New Thassilon.
Okay.
So then on the other side, you have Sorshin, the final Rune Lord. She was the Rune Lord of Lust, and unlike every other Rune Lord who awoke to either die, try to assert their powers and die as they were waking up, or realize that they were dying this whole time and reassert their power, she decided to emerge quietly and take some time to reflect. She awoke, as far as I can tell, or as far as I read, at the same time that Karzaug awoke, but she kind of like discreetly went into the world and just kind of observed for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So she saw how he, Kroon, and Zutha all reemerged and then died, and she kind of just got dissatisfied with the whole Rune Lords bickering and got bored of like just the carnal pleasures of being the Rune Lord of Lust. So she also realized that the world has changed and that tyrannical rule of Thassilon would no longer work. So instead of trying to do the old Rune Lordy thing, she actually rose to power in a kingdom called Eurythnia.
Yeah, that looks right.
And she seeks to rule it peacefully without having to war with its neighbors.
Oh.
So, like, one of them learned something and tried to then change tactics.
Yeah.
So
which is good. It's not a great percentage.
1 of 7.
So 5 out of 7 died, 1 is still bad, and 1 self-reflected.
Yeah.
Aw.
So, like I said, we are 40 minutes in, almost. And we are finally at where New Thassilon is today. And so, like we were talking about with the dates that this all happened, like Return of the Rune Lords was an adventure path around 2016 or 2017, 2018. It was actually the second to last adventure path made for first edition, Tyrant's Grasp being the last. So I thought it was kind of cool that they bookended their entire like
thing
edition with Rise of the Rune Lords and Return of the Rune Lords.
Nice.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But again, this is, 5 years ago that New Thassilon became a thing. So there's not too much about it. So it's now split into 2 kingdoms, Eurythnia and Idasaril. So Eurythnia is ruled by Sorshin, like we said. She doesn't really involve herself in the day-to-day life of her subjects, but she's trying to fashion Eurythnia and New Thassilon as a whole into a place where exiles, subversive artists, and misfits can call home.
Oh.
She attempts to coexist peacefully with their neighbors, and it's kind of like a thriving kingdom. The No Lands, which is kind of part of the lands of the Lenorm Kings. We'll talk about that next episode, but if it's not being currently ruled by Lenorm King, it's kind of just called the No Lands, where like there's just traveling tribes and whatever. So part of New Thassilon covers the No Lands.
Okay.
So the No Lands that are now part of New Thassilon are a kind of huge thriving kingdom now, or a thriving up and coming part of the country.
Good job.
Yeah. And so because of that, trade between the lands of the Lenorm Kings and Varissia is growing, and it's kind of a solid place to be. It's really just kind of a place trying to be peaceful. Like it's kind of being run pretty solidly. On the flip side, you have Edasseril, and that's run by Bellamarius. She continues to view all of the nearby nations with jealousy.
Of course.
Remember, she's the Rune Lord of Envy,
Right.
so this makes sense. And she's a bit unstable. So obviously, after going through 10,000 years of Groundhog Day, I imagine anybody would be a little crazy, even if you weren't aware of it. And Sorshin kind of knows this, and she realizes that Bellamarius might try to threaten what she's doing with New Thassilon. But for now, she hasn't really taken a stand. She's kind of letting Bellamarius do her thing and might step in if she needs to. Edasseril is in conflict with the elves of the Mirani Forest, so going back to history, and also the Lenorm Kingdom of the Ironbound Islands, so, trying to do that. They also annexed part of the No Lands, and her first act was to overthrow an unpopular Lenorm king, which, kind of ironically actually earned her some gratitude because they didn't really like that person anyway. She's also recruited a lot of giants and Zolgaths to possibly take over more territory. So she's kind of, while at this point is still kind of, the country itself is not, in full Taldor mode or full Thassilon mode. It's like kind of has those seeds of Thassilon. Rearming, yeah.
Okay.
She did not really learn something to change her tactics.
Yeah.
Well, she had her memory reset every week, so she couldn't self-reflect.
That's true.
Maybe she is incapable of coding new memories and change.
Yeah.
There we go. So overall, since the country's only 5 years old, it's had some history, but it's kind of like a new up-and-coming place.
Well, and it kind of like, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like it just like pops into existence because of the timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's like the land is there, and like it just kind of gets magicked a little bit.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Again, I might have misspoke because I've not read the full adventure path.
Right.
So while the full quote unquote New Thassilon that the Wrath Rune Lord had covered doesn't exist anymore, I think there was a lot of land to still be kind of taken.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't know if it was necessarily like boom, city happened, but more of just kind of like here's some land, I'm going to build it.
Sure.
Build parts of New Thassilon in. So yeah, there's like mages there that are working to meld kind of the current magical traditions with the old Thassilonian traditions. Some people are even adapting the title of Rune Lord to kind of name this new magic. It'll be actually really interesting to see what they do with the remaster. Rune magic, because it exists now in Pathfinder 2.
Yeah.
But it's obviously tied to schools of magic, so those are going away. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Ooh.
And then, of course, there are also a growing faction of Rune Lords, quote unquote, that are like, heck yeah, evil. They like the evil ways of the old Rune Lords. So of course there are. So we'll see how that goes. And kind of like some of the other countries we talked about, I feel like they're at a crossroads, almost kind of literally. They could follow the peaceful way of Eurythnia or kind of fall back into the more Thassilonian ways of Edasseril. And it's kind of up in the air to see.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that has been a whole history of Thassilon Rune Lords and a little bit of new Thassilon.
All right. Well, thank you, Tyler. I know that my brain is going to explode from all the information, but it's been great information. So we're all going to take a quick brain break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back to talk campaigns and characters.
You have a list of things you need your rune well to do. None of those things say, become trapped in an extra-dimensional sphere, reliving the same week of catastrophe over and over. Nope. You have a list of things you need your rune well to do. And Sinwells Incorporated has them. We have the sins you trust. No matter what sin drives it, you know your rune well will be able to absorb as much mortal energy as it needs to do its job. We also have people like Alderpesh. He asks the right questions to make sure you build your rune well correctly, and that you use the proper spell components when casting the final enchantment spells. That's because at Sinwells Incorporated, our list has great service right at the top. So the next time you need to make a rune well, do yourself a favor and call Sinwells.
Sinwells for your rune well needs.
All right. Thank you to our sponsors. I know I'm tantalized by that idea. So anyway, On to campaigns.
Campaigns.
And it's me, campaigning. Alright. So, in thinking through all of the information that Tyler pulled together for us on New Thassilon, for a campaign I'm going to focus on modern New Thassilon, which has a short history here.
Yeah.
But the parts that, like, really stuck out to me were kind of this idea of the pull between, like, people who want to go back to the evilly ways and then people who are like, maybe not. Maybe we don't want to do that.
Ooh.
So, the party is going to be part of a group of new Thassilonians. Are we calling them Thassilonians? Is that how we say that?
I think so.
Do you think?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that, Thassilonians.
Okay. Anyway, they're part of a group of new Thassilonians who oppose an individual named Athusa and her followers. So now Athusa is a canon character,
Okay.
and I might not be pronouncing her name
That sounds
correctly.
right.
Mhm.
Full disclosure. But she is one of the modern Runelords. She claims that she is a reincarnation of two previous Runelords who also had the name Athusa. Interestingly enough, so like
Oh, okay.
from
Yeah.
like way back in the day.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
Thassilon.
So maybe not one of the ones who got usurped.
Usurped.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I believe one of them was a previous Runelord of Greed,
Okay.
and maybe a previous one of Pride. I have to double check that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's citing that like I'm a reincarnation of these previous people, and she wants to return to the evil ways of old Thassilon.
There you
Mm.
go.
So our party here is going to be like against this idea, so they would be kind of more in the camp of like Sortians kind of people with,
Mhm.
you know, we want to be a little bit peaceful, we want our land to, you know, be a refuge or whatever. Maybe we're just like, we're here to learn magic, we're not here to be evil. Whatever your motivations, that's fine.
Okay.
So then, possible kind of missions that this party is going to take, it's going to be more like we're rooting out Athusa's supporters. We're undermining her attempts to gain followers. We're taking out people in her organization. So it's going to be a little bit more like subterfuge and kind of like behind the scenes
okay.
and like, I don't know, maybe we're like doing some little sneaky assassinations or we're like doing some spying type things. And then I have the idea that like they gain enough attention at some point in this campaign that they gain the notice of Belimarius,
Ooh.
who interestingly is also against Athusa,
Oh, okay.
but
okay.
only because she's like a rival for power, or
Yeah.
she's like, I need to push you out. So part of canon for Belimarius is that like she'll pay pretty well for information about
Yeah.
Athusa. So
Yeah.
somehow we're gonna encounter her in this capacity where she's against Athusa, so in line with what the party is in line with as far as that, but like obviously her motivations are very different. So the party will kind of have to choose like, do we take this? Do we help this person, or do we kind of like stay on our own path? So that's going to be kind of like, I think the big like climactic arc is going to be like her involvement, and then it will really be up to the party with which direction
Okay.
they go with it.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Because you could easily play like a good or bad party in this, and just kind of
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
or there could be some good character development, because obviously even if you think of like Thassilon, they all started off good and then kind of got corrupted. So you could either like might be an interesting like, oh yeah, we have this power, and you see that being corrupted.
Oh, I like this. Okay.
Yeah.
This works. So I made Braylith. He is a chaotic evil cleric.
Ooh,
I did not pick a deity, but having heard you talk that, I think
you literally had one job as a cleric, to pick a deity.
well, I did pick a deity, but I wasn't quite sure what the Runelords, if like
No, that's
I'd pick
fair.
an old deity or
Yeah.
like
Okay.
I wasn't sure where deities would land necessarily.
Okay.
But I think after hearing you talk about that, Sam, I think he is a wannabe Belimarius like fanboy
Oh.
who like really wants to be in Belimarius's good graces and is like looking for the attention and like joins up with this group, whether or not they're good or bad, like explicitly to get with Belimarius and like get
he's
in.
like, I want some street cred.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I think that's probably how I would integrate initially, and then
Yeah.
see if like if it's mostly a good party, like maybe I like self-reflect and learn a little bit that maybe things are evil and wrong, and maybe I tempt the party. Like, guys, Bella Marius is the greatest. We should all follow her
We should
instead.
do it. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh, I
yeah,
like
so it could
this.
really sway the party in a different direction too.
What level did you think that this campaign would be?
So I wasn't entirely sure. I was kind of thinking that like at the beginning it might start like out at like level 3 or level 5.
Yeah.
Because you're not confronting Athusa directly at that point. But I think like maybe I would like build into like up to like 12 to 15.
Mhm.
Where like that at that point, that's when you're that higher level is where you're maybe interacting with Belamarius or some of like the more higher up people in the
Yeah.
organization. I don't know exactly. I'd have to look up what Thusa's level is, so I wouldn't necessarily put the party against her if that was like completely out of line.
No, I think that works. I think you're
Yeah.
right, especially like starting low, trying to like skulk around, get
Mhm.
information, do the low level grunt work of
Mhm.
things, and then as you progress, you
You get into bigger things.
yes,
Look, the heroes listening to this podcast who played through both Rise and Return of the Runelords all started at level 1, so
That's right,
it can be whatever.
1 to 20 adventure paths. It's
Yeah,
true.
This is the third part of Runelords. So you have Rise of the Runelords, Return of the Runelords,
Revenge
and
of the
really Runelords.
Really?
I like Revenge of the Runelords.
Revenge of the Runelords.
I like Revenge.
Revengeance of the Rune Lords.
Runelords, stop it.
What other R words?
I don't know. I try to think.
Redemption.
Redemption.
Redemption of the
Runelords.
Rune Lords.
Ooh.
So basically what's going to happen is we're not going to name it until we know which way the party goes.
Yes.
Depending on if the party is great and does a good job or does good work, then they can be Redemption of the Runelords.
or
But if
Revenge of
they
the Runelords.
go the other direction.
Paizo, if you're out there listening, Sam will be paid to work on RPGs.
Yes.
She's in.
Oh my gosh.
I'll answer for her.
I don't want my day job. Please, let me just write fiction for you.
She already moderates a Harry Potter play-by-post RPG, so
Wow, called out. I love it.
What are you calling me out on? We're on a podcast
We're-
about Pathfinder.
No, it's not. It's called out in that. Called out in the sense of like, here are my other weird hobbies that I do.
I mean,
Who are you calling weird, Ryan? Jeez.
I support you, please. Come on, I had a failed play-by-post Discord server for a
oh,
while.
that's
Like,
true. That didn't go well. Anyway, yeah. So I think we have to do
rating.
the score, the rating.
We do. Now that we have taken this long trip through history, we are going to rate our score of the last 5 minutes of New Thassilon.
Are we doing each half of New
I think we
Thassilon?
do
Or are we
each
taking the
half.
whole thing?
I think we
Okay.
do each half.
I do think we need to rate this out of rune wells, though.
Yes.
Yeah. So and then they could both be rune. We can have rune wells and bad rune wells and trapped
Imploded
rune wells.
rune wells.
Bootleg room.
Yeah. Bootleg rune wells. Okay. Okay. So let's start with Eurythnia. 1 to 5 rune wells. What are we thinking?
I feel like I'd give it a 4.
I was gonna say 4.
Yeah.
4 seems right.
4 feels good.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, in just kind of a lot of the Saga Lands places, you're looking more of kind of sparse towns and
Yeah.
cities, so it's not as like protected, kind of like we talked about Varistia, but I feel like of a place to be.
Yeah.
It's
I just really liked the idea of like a haven for subversive artists. I really want to know what that art looks like.
yeah.
The rune art.
The rune art. Yeah, so you might like you might get a couple of Banksies in there,
Ooh.
There it is. It's the culture tour.
right? Okay, so 4?
Yeah, I think 4's good.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Edasseril?
I'm not gonna go 1. I was
No.
gonna maybe put 2.
I was also thinking a 2. I'm like, it's not positive enough for me to want to give it a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it has many redeeming qualities yet that make me like, yes, I would want a vacation there.
Yeah. And I feel like it's probably not differentiating enough to be different than why wouldn't you just go to Eurythnia?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
there's
that's
probably
true.
not as many like you can only see X at Edasseril.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm just gonna go to Eurythnia and call it a day.
Yeah, it's like the same culture, but like
Yeah.
2 different implementations of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, 2 rune wells.
2.
All right. Well, that has been a fabulous adventure. through New Thassilon, through history, through campaigns, through characters. Ah,
Heck
so lovely.
Through dating conventions.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, before we fall too far off the wagon. So we have some really exciting news. So we are going to be putting some new art up on the website.
And on our YouTube videos.
And on the YouTube videos, yes. I will get that put into the YouTube videos,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. So we found some amazing artists over at Draw Swords. They took a commission and created all of us as these very cool looking avatars. It's very exciting. So you can kind of at least put a likeness to us as we talk. But if you would like to check them out online, you can find them at Draw Swords Art. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter, whatever that is called at this point. So check them out. They're amazing. We can't thank them enough for doing all of the fabulous art for us. We're very excited. Let us know what you think of them too. And if we look like how you think we would as cartoons.
I was just saying, and then we're going to put it on our Instagram too.
Oh, we're going to post
yeah.
these things everywhere.
Yeah, we'll post it on our Instagram. It'll be on our website. We'll probably post it to Reddit. Yeah.
We're just very excited. So we're going to be really obnoxious about posting them everywhere.
I like
Heck
it.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We hope you're enjoying it. Please drop us a line. Tell your friends. If you want to reach out to us, you can always email us at tabletoptravelguidepodcast@gmail.com. And then at our website, you can find pictures, character sheets, all of that other fun stuff that we talk about. And that's just tabletoptravelguide.com. And until the next time, bon voyage.